So, hello everybody. Thank you for joining me today. So, as the name of this session suggests, it's all about investment in sustainable startups and social enterprises. So, they say that money makes the world go round. So, if we're trying to make the world a little better, we sometimes need a little bit more money. So, if you're a social enterprise or a sustainable business with plans to grow and scale your impact, then investment could be the boost you need to scale up and make a bigger difference. Because whilst we may be more focused on our mission than the money, it's clear that if you're not financially sustainable as a business, you're not going to achieve your environmentally sustainable goals. So your purpose gives you direction, but the finances fuel that engine that gets you there. And as we'll explore today, investment might be one option to help you reach that next level and scale up in your social business. So today I'm delighted to be joined by investment advisor Charlotte Scott, who will give us a bit of a whistle-stop tour on the investment landscape for those of us who put purpose over profit. So it'll be exciting to draw from her experience in this world and find out if investors are all fire-breathing dragons or not. And I'm also pleased to have support from Sally Talal of Impact Hub King's Cross. So Impact Hub is the world's largest network dedicated to supporting entrepreneurs looking to make a positive impact. So with that in mind, I'd like to welcome you all once again. Thank you for your time. And I'd like to hand over to Sally now to give a brief introduction to herself and Impact Hub King's Cross. Over to Sally.
Well, and thank you for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm Sally. I'm the community manager at Impact Hub King's Cross. We ourselves are also a social enterprise and a B Corp. And social enterprise Mark CIC approved as well, and the list can go on. But basically, we love to unite impact entrepreneurs both virtually and in our creative physical space in King's Cross. I'm currently in the space right now. So yeah, we are just a local and a global community where together with our members, our mission is to build a sustainable and fair future. Some of the offerings that include weekly events, business support, programs, perks, and the global community consists of 16,500 members. And they all basically tackle one or more of the sustainable development goals, which automatically, as a domino effect, it's such a thriving and beautiful vibe to the space. And basically, within this workshop, it has been kind of a key area for our members themselves. It's something that is of interest. So I was really excited to collaborate with Will and reached out to him and to meet Charlotte as well, and looking forward to diving deeper into the session and learn from you both. So I'll pass it over to Will, and thanks everyone.
Thank you, Sally. It's fantastic to hear that your doors are now back open. And
Yeah.
As we all emerge blurry-eyed from lockdown and want to interact with other humans again, it's great to have Impact Hub King's Cross as an option. So now I'd like to hand over to Charlotte Scott, who I've known for quite a few years, always been inspired by the work that she does. And I think we can all learn a lot about her and her expertise in the investment world. So I'd like to hand over now to Charlotte.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, everyone, coming. I'm going to share my screen now and hope that this works. There's always a moment, isn't there, when you're like, oh my God, is it going to work? And it has. There we go. Fabulous. Okay, so as Will said, my name is Charlotte Scott. I've worked in investment for about 2.5 years now. I was an entrepreneur coach and investment executive at North Invest, which is a not-for-profit based in Leeds, with an angel group of about 100 plus angels who wanted to see the North thrive. And I was their main point of contact and helped startups and entrepreneurs connect with these individuals, raise investment, but also I spent a lot of my time signposting to various other initiatives which might be more relevant and appropriate for them and their needs and requirements. And from that, I connected with an awful lot of other ventures and funds and individuals, a lot in the tech for good or sustainable startup space. So I will preface all this by saying that my knowledge and background has been around raising for tech startups. So for those of you who have a sort of a food or goods or retail e-commerce business, some of this may not be relevant for you, but I think when I just go a little bit deeper into the kind of the funding process and the deal process and how that works, there might be some things with some crossover there. So even though I will be mentioning, for any sustainable tech startups in the audience, where you can go, specific funds who will support you, the rest of it should hopefully be there for your kind of sector agnostic guys as well. Okay, so I'll dive right in then. So first, gonna rip the Band-Aid off. The first thing is that investment isn't life, like who you're getting into bed with. I know that there is the media stuffs it down our throats around the kind of persona of an investor or a fund or a VC, as a kind of Wolf of Wall Street figure, and they are money grabbing and they will force you to compromise on your ethics, and they'll kind of come in and take control of your business. And that is absolutely not the case. And it doesn't have to be the case. As founders, you have the power to decide whether you like and trust and want to work with the people who offer to buy some of the equity in your business. You can agree the kind of the terms of engagement from a very, very early stage. So if someone approaches you and says, hey, I love what you're doing, I'd really like to be involved, I have experience in this or whatever, and they offer you money for equity, you have every right to take them out for a drink or to have dinner with them or have a meeting or a call and really do some due diligence on who they are as individuals or who the fund is and what their terms are, and say, hey, look, you know what, I really appreciate the offer, but I want to run a business where I have control over kind of our priorities and our key goals, and I don't want you coming in and kind of on and controlling that, and that's how I like to work. And they'll say, well, I want to come in and actually have voting rights, and I want to be on your board, and I want to control things. And you'll go, okay, that's not for me then, thanks, bye, next. You absolutely don't have to take any money which is thrown at you. Please do trust and like and do your due diligence on who you're getting into bed with. First thing, I just want to I know that was a misconception that people have, and Will came to me saying that was, questions that he'd had about that, but you don't have to accept it, and they need to add value to your business too. So the entire funding journey then, it's very confusing. There are a lot of acronyms thrown around, and it's even people who work in funding and investment, they will have times where they'll call someone up and go, hey, are we pre-series A? Are we series A now? Like, what actual number is that? People don't really know. This is a snapshot of the kind of funding journey. This red line looks at the kind of the revenue and the profit, etc. And you'll see that just before you break even, which is when you actually start covering your costs, you will sit in this initial area around angels. So that's business angels or private investors, and the 3 Fs they like to call them, which is friends, family, and fools, which is a terrible way of saying that people who can't see any kind of necessarily even progress in your business will trust you and say, hey, you know what, you need $5,000 for a website, fine, here you go. And that's called bootstrapping, when you kind of put your own money in, you scramble around for friends and family to maybe support you in your business at very early stages before you've broken even or made any money. That's bootstrapping, and that's very, very common. And if you can make a business work just from doing that or putting your own savings in, and because you really believe in it, that is absolutely brilliant. And you don't have to necessarily go for investment. But when you are approaching funds or VCs and you see, the terminology early stage or seed being thrown around, this is what it's referring to, this area here. So if you're looking with early stage VC on the website and it says, we are early stage investor, immediately, oh, okay, they'll be looking at someone who probably is revenue generating, who's making some money, who's broken even, maybe has a few staff on board, has a very clear go-to-market strategy. That's what they need. So moving straight on then, I'm going to whiz through these, by the way. I really hope I don't go over time. I might do, but I'll leave some questions for the end as well. Okay, so we talked about bootstrapping. These are alternative forms of funding. You don't necessarily have to approach investors. Grant funding is particularly good for startups and businesses with sustainability goals, because a lot of the time, public funding, government funds, research and development, they have their own impact reporting. And they have funds allocated to them because the government is often pushing initiatives to make the world a better place, believe it or not. And so these funds really want to support startups who are trying to pioneer positive change. So grant funding is brilliant. It can be lengthy, and I'll go into this later. It can be quite a lengthy process. It does require knowledge of grant application writing. There are people out there who can help you with that. But if you are a charity, or if you're a social enterprise, grant funding should probably be your first port of call to really get that research and development done, product development, whatever it is, before you move on. You can also take business loans. There are specific government-backed startup loans for businesses. I'll mention those later, but otherwise you can go to your local bank. Some of them have really good terms, but that's something you would probably need to speak to someone far more qualified than I am to discuss. Crowdfunding, again, quite popular. It can get a bit complicated when you have millions of people throwing bits and bobs of change at you. But I have known people who've done it and raised crowdfunding, and they've never approached a VC or a private individual. So there are alternative funding sources out there for you. It just takes a little bit of digging. So where do you find them? Fantastic funders and where to find them. If you are working sustainable, if you're a sustainable startup, or if you are serving an overlooked customer group, for example, so LGBTQ+, the mature generations, the older generations, the BAME community, you can access funders who are specifically aligned to those goals and share the same goals as you. How do you find them? You look for people who talk about prioritizing social return on investment, ROI, return on investment, as much as financial. They do exist. They are out there because often, and people are, even individuals are realizing this now, private investors, they say, actually, yes, I get my money back and some, but the long-term social return actually is even more impactful and more profitable long-term than just focusing on this quarter's return on investment. They do exist. They are out there. Their reason of existing is to fund this positive, innovative change. Look for the buzzword tech for good, or alternatively ESG, which refers to environmental, social, or corporate governance investors. These are quite broad but defined criteria, which larger investors, particularly when you get a bit more mature, they do align with them. So they will look at every aspect of your business, and they'll say, oh my gosh, okay, this is great. They have a clear CSR policy. They for example, work with the local community or with schools to kind of help employment. They consider their carbon footprint as a business, and they're developing a product to pioneer positive social change. Great, it aligns with them, let's have a chat. So they won't even look at people if they're in oil or gambling or anything which kind of is a bit of a gray area ethically. So they are out there. Who are they? Grant funders. Going really fast here, guys, so I am sorry. Please do ask me questions at the end. These, if you're based in Yorkshire, the Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund, NPIF, as it's kind of commonly known, is your go-to. It was set up by the government a few years back to essentially try and kind of cross the north-south divide, which is, I'm sorry, Sally, I know you're based in London. It's a big thing up here. We're quite competitive about it. But the British Business Bank, which is kind of the central government bank, they divvied out hundreds of millions of pounds in funding to different fund managers, which were essentially chosen by government, by the organisation, to manage these funds and to pick out in their local areas, so Yorkshire and Humber or Northwest or Northeast, for example, businesses where they could allocate this funding. Now, this in Leeds area in Yorkshire and Humber, it's managed by Mercia Asset Management, who are a VC. They are early stage, so they do like people who are already sustainable as businesses and they are generating revenue. But most recently, because they have targets, they want to invest in 10 startups per quarter, for example. I'm making that up, but it could be true. They have funding targets specifically. So sometimes when it gets to the end of the financial year, and they haven't allocated those funds, they will also consider much earlier stage businesses. Innovate UK is, if you haven't heard of them yet, you probably should have. They are the umbrella grant fund for the government. A lot of research and development grants are given by them. They're normally specific project led. So you need to go to them and say, hey, I'm trying to develop this piece of technology, or I'm trying to run this project, and it will take place here. And this is how we're going to do it. And it's going to cost this much money. And they go, fab, okay, that fits within our little criteria. Here you go. Here's £100,000, for example. They have grants popping up all over the place. Do keep an eye on their website because they're managed by different people. So you do have to keep an eye out and keep looking at that. Angel groups. Ada Ventures is wonderful. They were set up by two entrepreneurs who were from tech. And they came together and said, hey, there is no angel group out there which is specifically funding positive social change. Their whole ethos is that they will only invest in startups who are either founded by overlooked founders or serving those overlooked customer groups that I mentioned earlier. So if you are a female founder and you're finding it really difficult to raise investment, or if you are a BAME founder and you're finding it, please do go to them. They also have a great approach whereby they select, and you have to apply for it, but they select these scouts around local communities, because people in the local communities, in the business community, know the other people in the business community. So they're like, well, this is ridiculous. Why don't we just engage these local individuals who are very influential, who know the business community, and then they can select startups and actually introduce them to us, because we're not going to know. So they have the scout program. They're about 50. They are based in London, but they are actively trying to engage with more startups, particularly in the north of England. North Invest, I've mentioned, not-for-profit. They are wonderful if you need any investor readiness advice, if you need signposting to a grant, if you are looking to get involved with ADA, please do go to North Invest. I can also introduce you, and they will give you the time of day. Even if you're pre-revenue, even if you just have an idea, they'll be able to point you in the right direction. VCs, so this is later on, a bit more mature. Sustainable Ventures does what it says on the tin. They were originally an accelerator, and they specifically fund clean tech. And I know a couple of people were talking about kind of carbon neutral homes and things. Potentially one for you later on down the line, perhaps, depending on what stage you're at. But their goal is to fund, I think, about 25,000 clean tech startups by 2023, I think it is. So definitely want to approach. January Ventures, another good one. I haven't worked with these guys, but they were also set up by tech founders who understood that you don't want VCs coming in and kind of trashing something that you've built. They also will consider pre-revenue businesses. So even if you do just have an idea and you think, okay, this is the technology I want to build, or this is the project I want to engage in, and you need funding, and all you have an idea and maybe a pitch deck, then please do send it to them. They will consider you. BGV, another London one, based like kind of operating all over Europe. Huge fund, again, really actively engage with northern startups, work a lot with North Invest. So they have a Tech for Good program where they will have workshops, free workshops. This is all free. You sign up to it and you can go all the way from kind of ideation stage and kind of say, come to them with just an idea, and they will work with you to help you develop a bit of a business plan, help you get your pitch ready, and actually get that idea off the ground. So even VCs are recognizing that they need to engage with startups and entrepreneurs at a really early level to make sure that sustainable ideas and diversity is increased, and they will work with you on that. So funding process, I'm not going to go deep on this, but this is generally the kind of process. As soon as you apply at the very pitch stage and they say, hey, I love your idea, do you want to come pitch it to us? You'll have your pitch deck, you'll go in, you'll have a meeting, presentation. You might even take part in a pitch event where there are private individuals in the room, or to a kind of investment panel if you're going to a VC, and you will present your idea. And then this is kind of what we're looking at here with the process. It can take up to 6 to 8 months. So please do consider, if you are considering investment, the time commitment that it will take. So I said it before, and I actually have given a talk before where I got stopped by a fellow investor and said, okay, hold on, because I say, oh, investment is giving away part of your business. And he was like, I'm sorry, no, it's not. And I was like, okay. And it was horribly embarrassing, and I've never made the same mistake again. So this is a misconception that investment is giving away control of your business. It absolutely doesn't have to be that. And it shouldn't be that, because it's something that you have built and you did it for a reason, and you have your own priorities and ethics, and you don't have to compromise on them. The important thing is that you find someone, particularly if they're a private individual who's giving you a check of 25K or whatever, that they bring value to your business far beyond just cash. If someone comes to you and wants to give cash to you and run in the other direction and never speak to you again, don't get into bed with them, because they will have their own reasons and their own agenda. But if someone comes to you and says, hey, I worked 50 years in the energy market, and I completely understand it, and I really believe in what you're doing, and this is how I'd like to help, and this is who I know, and what do you need? Tell me what you need from me. And do you want a critical friend who you can call up at 1 a.m. when something's on your mind and you don't know how to do something? That's the kind of person that you might want in your business. They are out there, they do exist. It's just you've got to kiss a lot of toads to find the prince, or whatever the phrase is. So pros of external funding, kind of just touched on these. The obvious, you get some money to fund your project. Industry insight, you get that critical friend who you can call up at any time if that's what you've agreed with them. Some will say, I will give 2 days a week to your business and I will go through your finances with you. Great, because their knowledge is in finance. Fabulous. They might connect you with some sales contacts or potential customers. Also great. They have that industry insight and that knowledge. Leverage it, use it. They need to add value to your business. Fab. And the cons, I did mention before, time-intensive process, and you're also now bringing someone else in, and there will be a relationship there. So you will have to then manage that relationship moving forward. You have to be very transparent with them, obviously, because there's a lot of trust involved, and you will, on some level, have to report to them on progress. This can be agreed. Some angels, because they're so involved with the business, they're like, okay, actually, I get where you're going. I understand what your goals are. I see the progress you're making. That's fine. Some who take more of a backseat, they might say, okay, actually, I'd like a progress report every quarter or every 6 months, or whatever it is that you agree with them. They would probably like to see some evidence of progress, and also some financial and legal understanding. Even if it's really basic, it is sort of required, because we're throwing around terms like SEIS and EIS and all these funding acronyms, which are, I think, deliberately confusing to put people off personally, and they don't have to be that way, but that's unfortunately the world we live in. So it can be quite high pressured and quite intense. And I think if you kind of educate yourself, then you will find it a lot smoother and a lot less scary to go through.
I can't right now.
So then you just had something off camera. So this is something which I'm almost wrapping up, guys, I promise. This is something which was also said to me, that if your business in itself isn't able to sustain itself, then you don't have a business. If you have a charity, this is obviously not the case for you. You are doing wonderful things and making wonderful efforts, and that's fine. You can be publicly funded or raise your own funds for that. But if you are a social enterprise or a business for profit, you do need to consider that, like any other business, in order to continue the brilliant work that you're doing and develop those technologies or develop those projects, you do need to be able to sustain yourself. If you went to an investor and said, oh my gosh, I need your money, otherwise the business will fold, or even a grant funder in some cases, if you went to Innovate UK and said, I'm pretty desperate, if I don't have this money now, we're going to fold, COVID notwithstanding, then they will probably balk at that and say, well, hold on, you started this business, it is a business. You need to be able to really consider if the problem you're solving is the problem you think you're solving, and if you actually are providing a solution, if there is a market for it, because otherwise it's very, very risky for them to get involved. So do please consider that. If, again, charities are a separate issue there. So when is the right time? You will know. You need to understand your future plans and ambitions. Is this something you want to do? Weigh up the pros and cons, understand your market's problem, and if you are developing a needed solution. Identify what the funding is needed for, absolutely crucial. Even if it's just for your own peace of mind, you need to understand, okay, well, if I get £100,000 of grant money in, I'm going to spend £50,000 of it on marketing, or I'm going to spend £50,000 on research and development, or product development. You need to have a very clear vision of this is where we're going to go with this, which I think would help you as a business owner as well. And I mentioned it's a very time-intensive process, so make sure that you can either take some time away from your business or bring someone else in, or you're at least financially sound. When people say run rate, they do just mean how much cash is in the bank to sustain you for X period of time. That's thrown around quite a lot, that term. I didn't really know what it meant for years, but that's what it refers to. And that was a whistle-stop tour. Please do ask questions. I hope that was clear.
That was fantastic. Thank you very much, Charlotte.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, so if you'd like to stop sharing your screen now, open up to the audience to ask any questions. But I would just like to say that I got a lot from that. It was a short whistle-stop tour, but it's really opened my eyes to the fact that there are more, socially minded investors out there, So you're right that the marketing of investment, especially the whole Dragon's Den thing, makes it feel quite scary. But I think that you've just, showed us that that's not really the case, and you've given us some good options to go to. Does anybody have any specific questions? I have a few. Mark, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away.
Thanks. Very helpful, very interesting for that. What I'm doing is I'm intending to do a social enterprise tech startup in neurodiversity. And in terms of, I want to form a limited by shares business. I'm mindful that ultimately I'm going to need social investment because of the building and scaling tech. What I'm trying to figure out is the articles of association for the limited company are important in terms of what kind of funding you might be able to get. So, I'm trying to tune this in terms of things like profit redistribution, for instance. Is there some sort of ideal mix to that where you could, you're still attractive to social investment, where you still promise to redistribute most of the profits, if you know what I mean? Because that's sort of the classic issue with a social enterprise. How far do you maintain the mission and reinvest profits, and how far do you make it more commercial and attractive to investment? I'm trying to just find the right mix. I was wondering if you had any thoughts there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm blown away, Mark, by the level of detail and consideration you're taking at this very, very early stage about the Articles of Association. You probably actually know more about those than I do at this stage. Something which I've seen is, and actually an approach that I took myself when I founded a business a couple of years ago, was that I set it up, and I can speak from my own experience here. I set it up as a private limited company, limited by shares, and went through the standard commercial, I guess you would say, limited company procedure of setting one of those up, with the view that I would make that commitment to donate X percentage of funds to charity. Now, the reason I did that was because I thought down the line, if for whatever reason that needs to change, I'm not in a legal battle with my own company around, okay, well, I've made this commitment in writing, almost contractually with myself and with the company. And if for whatever reason that needs to change, that would be really difficult to sort out. Whereas if you make a commitment and almost held accountable by your customers as well, if you set it up and you said, well, I'm investing X amount in whatever, if you then deviated from that, I think your kind of your stakeholders, your partners, your customers, they would question it. So I would almost go down the route of, okay, I'm going to set it up as a normal company, I suppose, private limited by guarantee, and then make that commitment very openly.
And would you still be eligible for grants mainly from the government?
Yeah.
If not foundations, because foundations probably won't look at you because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So from my experience, if you're a social enterprise, and North Invest actually sat in this space, which made it very difficult for us to access certain charity funding. There is funding out there specifically for charities, and you have to set up as a KIC in order to access it because you need your charity number. And that's fine, but then that makes it very complicated to raise funds from any private investors. So I think you either choose to be a charity and register as a kick and go down that road and just accept that it will be a very different funding process for you, or you stick to the private limited company, and then you can then absolutely tap into grant funding as well, unless they say it's specifically only for charities. There are some which do that, but the vast majority that I've seen are absolutely fine either way.
Okay, that helps a lot. It's a common dilemma, and there is a spectrum of where you want to place yourself as a social business, towards the kick side, towards the pure tech for good business side, and then there's a lot in between. So it's good to know some of that. Thanks.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for your answer, Charlotte. Just on that, Mark, I've been through a similar thing myself. So my business is set up as a normal limited company, limited by shares. But I've been through the social enterprise accreditation. I'm not sure if you've been through something like that yourself or spoken to anybody from Social Enterprise UK or socialenterprisemark.org.
Well, I've been supported by Unlimited, and they have a tool called, I think it's called Get Purposely. It's a web app where you can kind of go through a questionnaire, and they'll generate some articles of association to support you as a limited by shares company, which is quite helpful. And they have some information on which legal entity for what you want to do and what you want to access. So they've been pretty helpful there. That's mostly where I've gotten my information so far.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. They are a good resource. I'd like to also point you in the direction of socialenterprisemark.org.uk. I'm just going to paste it in the chat here because they really helped me go through the process, and I had to work with my own accountant to basically redo my articles of association to ensure that profits were used in a certain way, just to kind of codify those goals, and that helped me to get my social enterprise mark. So it just keeps everything in check, and it really answers a lot of the questions that it sounds like you have. So I've just dropped that link in the chat for you, Mark, so hopefully that will help.
Awesome. Thank you. I just heard of them recently, so I'll investigate a little bit more on that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add that we're actually hosting an event next week with Social Enterprise Mark CIC, taking them through the journey that we went through as Impact Hub King's Cross. So I'll share the Eventbrite link over here as well.
Fantastic. That'll be great, Sally. DJ Singh, you have your hand up.
Hi. So I know you said that if you go to an investor and you're saying you're about to fold, and then they'll balk at that. I was just wondering if there were like other things that you think they would balk at that people often include and probably shouldn't. And one of the ones I was thinking of was like things like salaries for staff and stuff like that.
Yes, absolutely. That's an excellent question. Thank you. There are definitely certain things. So you mentioned the salaries that is often contended. Salaries for startup founders generally tend to hover around I hate to say it, the minimum wage mark for actual co-founders. Now, if you bring on board someone you don't know who isn't necessarily a shareholder in your business as a director, so if you bring on a CTO, for example, or an engineer, like a software engineer or whoever it is, and you pay them 70K, then that will be questioned. But something I was working with an entrepreneur who did exactly that, and they said, well, hold on, you're paying yourself 20K a year, but you're paying this guy 70. That's an awful lot of money for a CTO. Like, what's going on there? And he said the reason was because A, he wasn't a director of the business, he was an employee, and B, he said that he does essentially 3 people's jobs because he's so talented at the tech that if they had to hire 2-3 software engineers to get his job done, you'd be looking at 40K each. And they said, actually, this individual is taking a real risk here because he's doing 3 people's jobs, and that's why he's paid this much. So as a founder, you have to be really careful about how much you pay yourself, and do not, when you go for investment, do not say, okay, well, I'm raising this much money because I'm pegging my salary up to 70K a year. They will absolutely go, what? I'm just literally giving my money straight into your pocket. As a founder, I think you do need to accept that for a couple of years, you will be on quite a low salary comparatively. However, if you bring people, senior members of the team in, and you can justify their salaries, that's absolutely fine. Hiring people is a completely justifiable way of spending funds. The other thing is valuation. If you're pre-revenue or you're very early stage, when you go out to raise and you say, okay, we're valued at £2 million pre-money, like pre-money is in like pre-investment, people, the first question everyone will ask is, well, why and how? Because it's generally accepted that if you're pre-revenue, you have nothing to base it on but your own assumed forecasts. It's basically just finger in the air. And that's fine if you can justify it on, okay, well, we are making these assumptions, and this is the IP, and this is what we've registered, and this is how much is in the business. That's fine, but you do need to be flexible on that. So please don't go in and really stick to your guns around valuation. It's a negotiation at that point. And the third thing, which I was going to mention, is that you do need to demonstrate, I mentioned this in the presentation, that it is at the end of the day a business, unless you're a charity. If you say to them, okay, well, this is what we're going to get the funding in for, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to set up a food bank, and they'll say, okay, that's great, but ultimately, how does that grow the business? And is this even a business? They are still taking a risk by putting money in founder and taking a real punt on you, particularly in early stage. So you do need to have a very good business proposition for them. The social ROI is very, very important. The only reason they'll be looking at you is because they will believe in what you're doing and want to support that. But unless you have a business case as well and say, this is the problem, this is the solution, this is my market, this is how I'm going to sell it, this is how the money's going to, this is going to, as a business, how we sustain ourselves, then they'll go, this isn't a business, this is a hobby or just a charity, and they will really balk at that. So I think those are probably the three things. Sorry, that was a very long-winded question. I probably could have I could have just dialed that down, but there you go.
Thank you, that was very appreciated.
You're very welcome.
That was a good answer, thank you. And you know, like, I suppose the more long-winded answers, we kind of, you know, it touches on other points too. Like you mentioned that being a sustainable business, it needs to have both meanings of the word sustainable, because you know, one thing that I've learned from speaking to a lot of people is that, you know, sure, we might have this mission and this purpose, but we need the kind of financial fuel, you know, to kind of fuel that. Otherwise we'll just be sat in a car wanting to go there, but we can't get there. So, you know, the kind of money fuels the vision that we might have. So thanks for that information. Geraldine mentioned, I'm not sure if you want to unmute and ask, but she says she's having a similar problem to Mark. I think she's currently a limited company, but switching to a CIC or a KIC. She says it's not sure if it would be attractive enough to investors, as there's a cap on the return that they get. Geraldine, feel free to.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm a limited, and I'm talking with investors, but because the whole idea is to be a social enterprise, you know, and reinvest the profits, I'm considering a CIC. Also because something I'm looking into as well is to be able to raise funds from the public to get donations. So like CIC seems kind of the right way to be able to do both. But I also heard yet of this cap for investors, so that might be not as attractive. So I'm trying to figure out if I should do that or not.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think that was going back to what Mark was saying. It's I guess it depends on how you want to future-proof your business and where ultimately you want to be. The cap would definitely be a consideration. I personally don't know any private investors or even VCs who've invested large amounts of money in charities, in KICs. that might just be me, and I might just be rubbing shoulders with the wrong people. There have been social enterprises, there have been many tech for good and sustainable startups, but I haven't seen anyone invest in a kick. So maybe that is something that you want to consider, if whether that cap is putting people off, or if there's an alternative way of funding your business. You know, if you think that actually those public donations could carry you through and that's sustainable as a business case, then that's fine. And many charities do that. But I think maybe Claire wants to add something.
Unmute. Hi, yeah, thank you. Hi. Geraldine, this is the perfect conversation for us as well. We're in the middle of doing the opposite. So we are a kick, although we're limited by guarantee, so not limited by shares. So we can't issue shares anyway. But the big question was, do we change into a kick limited by shares or go into a limited company? And after quite a few conversations, we're definitely going into the limited company. So we're sort of doing the opposite, because I found that through the conversations I've had, it pretty much echoes what you've said there, Charlotte, that most people are going, yeah, we'd not be as interested. It's just there are so many limitations about how you can raise funds, but also what you can do with your funds and the return that an investor could get on it. And there's no way around it. There needs to be a return, a financial return, I think, as well as a social one. If you're getting considerable amounts of money from somebody. So, but yeah, there are other considerations around the perception, the public perception of what you do, and as a social enterprise, you have access to other funds that you can't access as a limited company, and I suppose it is just what you do and what serves it best, really. But I just wanted to, say hello and say we're doing the opposite. We're moving from a kick to a limited company, because the kick is limiting us too much, and we're doing incredible work socially, but financially it's stifled because we're a kick limited by guarantee. So that needs to, and it's growing, it's going above the ground, but it just needs to be free to spread its wings properly. So just thought I'd add that.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you for that, Claire. Because that's the thing, we sometimes think that we generally start out as a normal business, then we get this awakening and think actually we need to become a charity or something else.
Oh dear. Oh, is he frozen? Oh no. Nicola, I also do see your hand. Would you like to add something, or?
Yeah, it's just I'm coming at this. So my background is actually in grant funding. So I've spent 20 years working for a range of charities and non-profits on the grant funding side of things. And I would just echo exactly what's being said. I think there's two sort of very different, what an investor will look for is basically the financial return, like, will I get my cash back and can I make some money out of this business? I mean, I'm being brutal here, but that's essentially it. Whereas if you're looking at grant funding, it's much more on that social return side, and not looking to get money back, but to invest in something to have the end use. So I think there's two, it's that ultimately what is it we're trying to do here? Is it essentially the sort of charitable side of things, or is it more the sort of getting money back side of things? And those two things are very different. I think you can have, some of there are sort of dual statuses, but certainly some grant funders won't invest in companies, will invest in CICs, but then that might kind of cut you off from the other side. So I think it's, it's a bit of a decision to be made, but really fascinating for me to hear all of this, because I'm learning a lot about the other side of things. So thank you.
Thank you, Nicola.
Thank you. Sue, you have your hand up. Feel free to unmute and ask away.
Oh, thank you very much, Will. So my question is really about accelerators that are primarily not tech, so actually consumer products, but consumer products that are doing good in the world. So just for context, my brand is Solid Shampoo and Conditioner. We're 100% plastic-free, vegan brand. It's a challenger concept, and some of the big consumer companies are also doing that now, but they're also at the same time producing millions of plastic bottles. So yeah, I guess we're quite keen. It's hard to break into mainstream consumer without, I'd say, without contacts, and that's really what I'm looking for from an accelerator. So are there any that you could recommend, Charlotte?
Yeah, absolutely. So NatWest Accelerator actually is really good. I know it's run by a bank, and that's a bit like off-putting, but the people who run it, particularly, whereabouts are you based, Sue?
I'm based in London, and actually I've applied for that last year, but we'd only been going for like 6 months. So I got an interview, but I didn't get accepted, but I've applied again.
Right.
And I think I'm a lot better prepared than I probably was first time round. Yeah, and I'm literally just down the road from the main accelerator hub that they have in North London. It's like a 5-minute walk. Yeah. Okay, so that's a good one. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was excited. I will keep my eyes open. It might be worth maybe talking to BGB just in case, because
Okay.
if they're a really nice small team, I can put you in touch, and they will, because they are predominantly tech, but they will know the landscape, particularly down in London, and they will be able to kind of put you in touch with people with more accelerators and things down there. The other thing too, there's a lady I know who is doing not the same thing at all, but in that kind of consumer product space, who I think it's like sustainable and eco-friendly bath salts and things like that. And she's managed to really grow that business and raise investment. And I think it was just through kind of who she knew. And if you want, I can maybe reach out and just say, how did you meet the individuals who are in that consumer space? Because I say I'm more from tech, so I'm like, but I can reach out for you. And I think going off of that, DJ Singh, I see your question, but Graham has asked a similar thing in the chat, which is what's the best way to meet potential investors? Because as you mentioned, so it's all about contacts. Do reach out to and apply to an angel groups, and it is always worth, even if you think, oh, okay, well, they don't look at people this early on or whoever. If you see that they are a small team, they are in the early stage funding, so they're not private equity or family offices or anything like that.
Yeah.
They are in early stage. Even if you're not necessarily eligible right now, having that relationship with them early on and kind of putting your head above the parapet and saying, hey, can you help? Do you know anyone? They'll probably help you. So do keep applying. Angel groups are a really great way. But yeah, I'll have I'll pop my email in the chat, Sue, and then I'll reach out and maybe we can just keep in conversation, and I'll keep my ears and eyes open.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've spoken to one family office, and we're just below their kind of revenue threshold, and a good contact. But we're sort of still, we're still in the first 18 months of business, so it is pretty much sort of seed stage. Yeah, that's helpful. And I think BGV, I have a feeling they might have funded Birdsong, the fashion company, but I'll have a quick look.
Oh, possibly. Yeah, possibly. And it might be worth speaking to Ada Ventures as well, because they invested in Truva, the marketplace. Yeah. So they clearly are on that side. Yeah, we'll pick it up offline. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much.
Very welcome. And then DJ Singh, I guess.
Hi. So this may be a bit of a how long is a piece of string type question, but I'm aware that business plans can be 60 pages long if you really wanted them to be, and I assume that most investors wouldn't want to read 60 pages to get an idea of whether they want to invest or not. So do you have a kind of sweet spot type of area that you think, in terms of the level of detail that you need to put into a plan that you present for investment?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a question I used to get asked all the time. And North Invest, actually, if you go on their website, they do have a downloadable pitch deck template, which is 14 slides of, okay, this is into detail. This is the level of detail you need as a kind of initial application because they will inevitably request more details around financials, et cetera, et cetera. I would recommend that you have your 30-second elevator pitch, or even just your one-liner. Someone said to me once when I was founding my own business, I was talking to an investor, and they were like, so what do you do? And I was like, well, it's kind of this, and then we do this. And he was like, okay, let me stop you there. He was like, if you can't describe your business in 30 seconds, you don't have a business. And I was like, it was horrible. But he was right. So you need to be able to really know exactly what your mission is, what problem you're solving, who your customer is in almost a sentence. So do really like look into yourself and have that nailed down. So that's your 30-second kind of elevator. Then your kind of investment one pager. If you're specifically applying for investment or reaching out to an investor, you almost want an overview. So just literally 1 to 2 pages overview. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is how much we're raising. This is our valuation. This is the opportunity. This is the problem. This is the product. This is the market. This is our go-to-market strategy. This is all just 1 to 2 lines on each, and just complete kind of bird's eye view of the business. And then they might come back to you and say, actually, yeah, this is great. This is the sector I'm interested in. And then you can send on a pitch deck. The pitch deck presentation, as I mentioned, about 14 slides. I can dig out that link actually and put it in the chat. But that will go into the, again, problem, solution, product, market, go-to-market strategy, sales, marketing, but also most importantly, your team. Because there's a great book which is called The Fundamentals of Angel Investment, which was co-authored by the guys who founded Launchpad Ventures in the US. And they said that they would always rather back an A team with a B idea than a B team with an A idea, because even if that team couldn't deliver on that business because the business was fundamentally not really a great idea, they would come up with something else in the future. And so that they would be happy to invest in them. But if they had a really great business idea and a team which was a bit wishy-washy, they didn't know what they were doing, they'd never delivered before, they couldn't demonstrate their experience, they didn't have the skills, they wouldn't touch it, even if it was a great business idea. So in that deck, really make sure to outline who are the senior members of your team who will deliver this business. So definitely include that on the pitch deck presentation. And then just a 1-pager on financials as well, and your investment ask and breakdown. So how much you're actually raising? Is it SCIS or EIS? And do you have that advanced assurance? Have you gone through that process? Are you just applying? What's the current status? And also the valuation, and maybe just say negotiable or open to discussion at this stage. And then the investment ask and how you're going to spend the funds. And you don't have to go into too much detail. It could just be as simple as 25% on sales and marketing, 35% on new hires, etc., etc. So I'd have those 3, and then you can have, if they really want all the detail laid on thick, you can have your 60-page deck of going really, really deep into detail about Oscars Association and whatever else they need to know. But I think if you get to that stage, they're quite bought into the idea, and you'll probably have already had a couple of phone calls already with them, and they'll ask those questions. But I'd say have all of those prepared, because there is a frustration that entrepreneurs will go out and they'll apply to different VCs and different funds, and they'll all want something else. Some people will want a 2-minute pitch, and some people want 30 seconds, some people want a 14-slide pitch deck. Prepare all of them, know exactly your business inside out, and then you'll have all your bases covered.
Thank you, that's super useful.
Awesome answer. It's sort of like, almost like you've got your kind of CV, which is the long description of your history and everything, but you've got the kind of shorter sort of cover letter just to summarize. Is that right? Awesome. We are almost at the end of time. End of our time here. Sally has to dash off pretty soon now, so I'd like to say thank you.
Sorry, no, you can't. What's
Mute someone else. Sorry. Sally, I'd like to just give you 1 minute to give a final word before you dash off. I'm going to paste your Impact Hub website in the chat here if you want to learn more. But Sally, over to you for a final say.
Yeah, thanks, Will, and thank you, Charlotte. This has been so valuable, and it's so lovely to see many familiar faces over here as well, and I hope it's been of value to everyone. I've certainly learned a lot. If you ever want to have a chat or just get to know about Impact Hub King's Cross, or come down to the space and see it yourselves, you could see DJs at the hub, and Lydia was at the hub as well. But yeah, just feel free to send me an email, and happy to explore this further if you have any questions. So I'll just put my email in the, and hope to see you in next week's event with Social Enterprise Mark CIC. I think that'll be of value if anyone wants to go down that journey. Thanks, Will. Thank you, Charlotte. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you, Sally. I'm not sure I had to drop out, but if you can still hear me, give me a wave. Can you hear me okay? Great, great, thank you very much. So I'd just like to say thank you again to everybody for joining. Thank you, Charlotte. If Charlotte, you'd like to drop any links or any further information, I see you've dropped the pitch deck template in there, that's fantastic. But if people want to get in touch with you or work with you or find out more.
Yes, I'm just putting in my email now. I wear two hats. I also work at a film studio, so this is my film studio email. Either way, you'll reach me. So or connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you do have any questions, or I know that soon I'm going to connect you with some people and we're going to pick up offline. But if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Always happy for a chat. If I can help, I will.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. It's been invaluable and really illuminating, actually. Exciting to learn all this. And if people would like to learn more about me, check out goodwillstudios.com. And also, I'd like to invite you all to continue the conversation in my private community Facebook group, which I've just posted in the chat here. It's called the Polite Rebel Society, and which it's a network of people who are doing really good things, using their businesses and their enterprises to change the world. And it's a really sharing community where we drop ideas and help each other out and make connections. So I'd like you all to check that out if you do use Facebook. If not, then just find me on LinkedIn and we can chat otherwise. But yes, thank you all so much for your participation. It's been a really educational hour. So yeah, have a great day, everybody. Keep in touch with each other. Let's get LinkedIn, and I'll see you all at the next event. So take care, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Bye, everyone.